Supposed to be a voter.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, Thursday, April 27th, 2023, the first day of the Washington State Apple Blossom Festival and the time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. It's 5:15 p.m. We always start with a pledge to our flag. I'm not sure whose turns it is, Keith.
But it's mine.
Why don't you do it? Thank you, Keith.
You please stand and remove your hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffaker. And for the record, we have all 7 council members with us this evening. Our first item on our agenda tonight will be citizen comment. We do not have any public hearing items tonight, so if any member of the audience will wish to address the city council on something that's on tonight's agenda or not, this would be the time that you would come up and we'd give you 3 minutes, ask for your name and address. Anybody interested in addressing the city council on anything? Seeing no takers, we will move on to our consent items. So our first item on today's agenda is regarding our consent items, which would be a motion to approve this evening's agenda vouchers and the minutes from our previous meeting, and a motion to adopt ordinance 2023-5, changing the address of Wenatchee City Hall.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion that we adopt the consent items consisting of this evening's agenda, vouchers, and minutes from previous meetings, and a motion to pass ordinance number 2023-05, amending Wenatchee City Code Section 1.90.070 to reflect the current address of City Hall.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby, to adopt this evening's agenda, vouchers, and minutes from our previous meetings, and to adopt ordinance number 2023-05, amending Wenatchee City Code Section 1.90.070 to reflect the current address of City Hall. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Just for point of order, it's a little bit hard to write Yakima Avenue for Wenatchee's address, but I don't know how to change that, but just interesting. All right, we have a number of presentations this evening, and the first is regarding our Poppy Days proclamation. And Tim, do we have someone on Facebook with us? Teams?
Caroline.
Oh, hey. Hi, Caroline. I don't know, can we hear her? Are you on mute or are we on mute? How are we doing this?
Yes, she's unmuted.
Okay, are you able to hear her?
Yes.
Okay, so you're gonna have to speak down. Go ahead.
We're struggling with audio.
Should we go ahead and do the proclamation while they sort that out?
Yeah, let's go ahead and Keith, why don't you read the proclamation? We'll see how they're doing on their part of it.
Proclamation. Whereas the American Legion each year sponsors throughout the state of Washington a campaign for the distribution of crepe paper poppies, and whereas all proceeds from the distribution will be used for the benefit of the men and women now serving in all armed forces, needy war veterans, the orphans and widows of deceased veterans, and whereas this charitable drive will enable all citizens to show their gratitude to servicemen and women and have a part in contributing to the assistance rendered to needy and disabled war veterans and their families. Now, therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Poppy Days in the City of Wenatchee, and I urge all citizens to support this worthy cause by wearing the poppy during this period. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 27th day of April, 2023. Mayor Frank J. Kuntz.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffaker. Caroline, can you hear us? And we're having a harder time hearing you. I think we just had her. Hold on, we're working on it.
I'm unmuted.
Texting with her at the same time, her mom.
Oh, okay.
Okay, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Yes, we can sort of hear you. Caroline, it's all yours.
Okay, Caroline, she's at a camp
sort of hear her.
I love my community. I'm proud of being a patriot and appreciate veterans for their many sacrifices they make to protect our freedom. I come from a military family and have many family members that have served, including several great uncles that served in World War I, including the pilot that Rancher Field was named for. I had a step-grandpa that served in the Pacific during World War II, two uncles that served in an army during Vietnam War, one grandpa that served in the Air National Guard, and a great uncle that served in the Air Force. The veteran I am most proud of is my dad, Captain Bill Taylor, and his 25 years of service in the Navy. Dad served on many Navy ships and was the commanding officer of 7 different reserve units. My favorite memory of our time in the Navy was when we got to live in Germany for a year. Now I'm going to tell you some history of the poppy. From 1914 to 1918, during the First World War, Flanders Field in Belgium was a major battle site. A million soldiers from more than 50 different countries were wounded, missing, or killed in action. Today, 370 American soldiers are resting there in peace. In spring of 1919, poppy grew wild in these battlefields. Scientists found that the constant bombing mixed the soil and brought the poppies to the surface. Chemicals from the bombs fertilized the flowers, and minerals from the broken buildings made the soil rich. From the dirt, the mud grew a beautiful red poppy, and that symbolizes the blood shed of fallen heroes, and was the idea for the poem in Flanders Fields, written by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, a doctor who served on the front line, which I will read. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on one. That marks our place, and in the sky, the large silvery singing, twice great heard amid the guns below. Here the dead, short days go. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset flood, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from falling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us we die. We shall not sleep, for poppies grow in Flanders Fields. In September 1920, the poppy became the official flower to the American Legion, family to represent the soldiers who fought and died during the war. And many members of the American Legion give out poppies with a request that the person receiving the flower makes a donation to support future veterans, active duty military, and their families with medical or other needs. Thank you for letting me speak here today, and I appreciate your support for the American Legion and their veteran support program.
Thank you, Caroline. So we're going to pass the bucket around and get some poppies and get some money. I think it's to your mother, who's here, and or whoever's here. We didn't get to hear all of that as well as we would have liked to, but it sounds like your family's been very involved in defending our country, so I appreciate that. I'd like to find a time, if there's a time for you to come to City Hall and spend some time here and meet the council members. So I don't know where you live or anything, but would you find some time with our staff and get you down here? Because I want to meet you in person.
Yes, I could.
Excellent. Thank you, Caroline.
We'll arrange that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Come on up. Let's go.
Okay.
So where's Caroline from?
She's from here. She attends Cascade Christian Academy. She's in the 5th grade.
Okay.
Her dad served and.
She seems like an amazing young woman. I would really like to,
Absolutely.
have her here and-
Tammy, we'll
Okay,
schedule it.
perfect.
Yes, I'll talk to Chris and Bill and,
okay.
yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Julie?
We need some help with the money
She's
side.
additional help.
She needs the banker.
Thank you.
So which one of you wants the proclamation? Okay. Oh, I've got one, thank you. And then when you guys go work the rest of the room, we're gonna move on with our other items, if that's all right?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thank you.
letting her.
I wanna meet her in person.
It sounded like she was in Germany.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
work in progress.
Yeah.
It's nice.
All right, so our next item regarding presentations is regarding Apraxia Awareness Day proclamation. Councilmember Harold, would you read that into the record for us?
I'd be honored. Whereas May 14th, 2023 marks Childhood Apraxia of Speech Day, during which awareness will be raised throughout Washington about childhood apraxia of speech, an extremely challenging speech disorder that affects 1 in 1,000 children. Whereas childhood apraxia of speech, CAS, causes children to have significant difficulty learning to speak and is among the most severe speech deficit in children. The act of learning to speak comes effortlessly to most children. Those with apraxia require early, appropriate, and intensive speech therapy, often for many years, to learn to speak. Whereas without appropriate speech therapy intervention, children with apraxia will have diminished communication skills, but are also placed at high risk for secondary impacts in reading, writing, spelling, and other school-related skills. That such primary and secondary impacts diminish future independence and employment opportunities and challenge the ability to become productive, contributing citizens if not resolved or improved. Whereas public awareness about childhood apraxia of speech in Washington is essential for families of children with this neurological disorder and the professionals who support them to achieve the needed services for those learning to use their own voice. Whereas our highest respect goes to these children, as well as their families, for their effort, determination, and resilience in the face of such obstacles. Now, therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, hereby proclaim May 14th, 2023 as Apraxia Awareness Day in the City of Wenatchee and encourage citizens to work with their communities to increase awareness and understanding of childhood apraxia of speech. In witness whereof, I have caused the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on the 27th day of April, 2023. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Harold. All right, where's Oliver? Come on up, bud. How are you doing? Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. You have to come over here to all the, you want to address the council? You want to say something too? Come on up. Yep. Do you want me to hold you, or do you want like a microphone? How do you want to do this? I don't know. What do you want to say? Does this work?
Here.
Yeah, what do you want to say? Say something to the council members. Say hi.
Hello.
Oh, here we go. Here's one.
Hi.
Say, what should you say? Thanks for the proclamation.
Thank you for the information.
And the mayor is really cool.
And it's really cool.
Ah, perfect. I'd stick with those. Thanks, Oliver. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making us aware of apraxia. I didn't know about it until today, so thank you for doing that. Thank you all for being here.
Adorable.
right, our next presentation is regarding General Aviation Proclamation Month. Who has that one? Councilmember Kulas.
Whereas Wenatchee in the state of Washington has a significant interest in the continued vitality of general aviation, aircraft manufacturing, aviation educational institutions, aviation organizations, and community airports. And whereas general aviation and the Pangborn Memorial Airport have a significant economic impact on the city of Wenatchee. And whereas the 2020 Washington Aviation Economic Impact found that airports in the state support an annual economic impact of over $107 billion, over 407,000 jobs, and a total payroll of over $26.8 billion. And whereas, according to the Federal Aviation Administration, the state has 134 public use airports. These airports serve almost 25,000 pilots and almost 7,200 registered aircraft. And whereas, according to the Federal Aviation Administration, the state is home to 107 repair stations, 22 FAA-approved pilot schools, almost 8,000 student pilots, and over 4,400 flight instructors. And whereas general aviation not only supports Washington's economy, it improves overall quality of life by supporting emergency medical and healthcare services, law enforcement, firefighting and disaster relief, investments in sustainable fuels and technologies, and investments in innovative experimental technology like vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, and by transporting business travelers to their destinations quickly and safely. And whereas the United States faces a shortage of aviation professionals, leaders should invest in this critical infrastructure to ensure future economic growth and our future generation of aviation professionals and pilots. Now, therefore, I, Frank Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as General Aviation Appreciation Month. In witness whereof, I've caused the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 27th day of April, 2023. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kulas. Richard, are you here from the port for this? You own an airport, you run one.
I can do that.
That's okay, we'll give it to Richard. He's the port director. They run an airport. Sure, appreciate it. Did I tell you that there's a limit of 3 proclamations per meeting?
We just hit that then, so I'm done.
All right, we'll do the 4th one, Bike Proclamation Month. Travis Horby, would you read that into the record for us, please?
I will, Your Honor. Proclamation, whereas throughout the month of May, City of Wenatchee will celebrate biking and the freedom, the joy, and the well-being it imbues within us, as well as the power that more people riding bike has in making life better for everyone. And whereas May 3, 2023 is Bike to School Day, and May 19th, 2023 is Bike to Work Day. And whereas throughout the month of May, the residents of Wenatchee and its visitors will experience the joys of bicycling through group rides, races, community events, educational programs, charity events, and or by simply getting out and going somewhere by bike. And whereas bicycling has been shown to improve citizens' health, well-being, quality of life, growing the economy of Wenatchee, attracting tourist dollars and local businesses, spending and reducing pollution, congestion and parking costs on our streets and roads. And whereas Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, Complete the Loop Coalition, TREAD, Sustainable NCW, and the Wenatchee Velo, schools, parks and recreation departments, police departments, public health districts, hospitals, businesses, and civil groups will be joining the League of American Bicyclists in promoting bicycling during the month of May 2023. And whereas these groups are also promoting the use of use of the bicycle as both a means of transportation and recreation year-round to attract more visitors to enjoy our local parks and trail system, as well as restaurants, hotels, retail establishments, and cultural and scenic attraction. And whereas these groups are also promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operations and safety education during Bike Month and year-round in an effort to reduce collision, injuries, and fatalities and improve health and safety for everyone on the road. Now therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, hereby proclaim the month of May as Bike Month and encourage residents and visitors of Wenatchee to experience the joys of bicycling during the month of May and throughout the year. I witness, therefore, I have caused the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on the 27th day of April 2023. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Travis. All right, folks, come on up. How you doing? Oh, we're gonna picture taken, then we'll give you the mic.
Yes.
You coming in?
I'm coming in. Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
All right, you want to address the council, say something?
Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Davis. I work for TREAD. We're happy to be here to promote health and wellness in our community and our outdoor recreation community and transportation and access to the outdoors. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, and we have our annual update from our friends at Link. So Richard Durock, come on up and give us an update on what's happening with Link these days.
Great, well, welcome everybody. Glad to be here. It's been almost 3 years, I realize, so I thought.
Time for our annual update then, yeah.
It's time. So, okay. So, give you a couple of statistics. I've handed out our annual report, and you have a copy of the presentation that's there. So, for 2022, we were averaging 3,091 average daily boardings, which is 92% of where we were pre-COVID. And to give you an indication of the industry, I just got back from a transit conference, actually this morning, where the announcement was that we've reached a new high nationwide. We're at 70% of COVID ridership nationwide. So 92% was actually really quite good. We did 954,000 boardings last year. That's 97% of where we were pre-COVID. Now, a little bit of updating. In March, we were at 3,187 average daily boardings, about 93%. But our ridership was actually a million, we're on path for over a million boardings. We're up 111% of where we were pre-COVID for monthly ridership. Now, it may not make sense. You're saying if the average is still below pre-COVID, how could the total be above? Average is weekdays. Our ridership has shifted. Our weekday ridership is still a little below where it used to be, but our weekend ridership is off the targets up, and that has risen the total up. And that trend actually is something we're seeing around the country, that people are shifting more to evenings and weekends, more recreational access, and our intention was to provide access to second shift jobs. That does appear to be working quite well. We operate 2.6 million miles on our vehicles last year. We put a lot of miles on vehicles. I was at a session yesterday where the national average for a transit vehicle is 22,000 miles a year. Our average is 50,000 miles a year, and our long distance buses do 75,000 miles a year. So we just churn a lot of miles on those vehicles. Shows we have 155 employees. We're 18 short according to this. It's actually closer to 25 right now. And that's a huge issue because we have every intention to expand the system. The voters approved a sales tax expansion to fund a 40% expansion service, and we haven't been able to get it all in place because we're just short. We can't get the operators in. This graph shows you our ridership over the last couple of years, and you can see as in 2019 we were a little over 1 million boardings, which we're on path to beat that at this point. And we dipped in 2020 with COVID. We did not fall anywhere near as far as most systems in this country. The average transit system fell to 35% of their pre-COVID ridership during COVID. We never fell below about 65%, and I think that just shows the transit dependence of our riders and the fact that they don't have a lot of other choices. And so they really do, their entire lives are very dependent on what we're doing. And just showing how we've been recovering the last couple of years. Revenue hours, this is the amount of service that we provide on the road, and what you can see is that we have been implementing an expansion of service consistent with the new revenue we got in 2020 to make the system work better. Unfortunately, you'll notice it's a little lower in 2022. We actually had to cut a bit of service because we didn't have enough operators to operate everything we intended to do. And we're still sort of at that same point in terms of the hours of service, but our ridership continues to grow. The demand is increasing. Revenues, we received a large federal allocation during COVID, and you can see that in the bump in 2020 and 2021. Of course, the sales tax went up in 2020, and so 20% of that is the actual increase that went into effect in 2020. In 2021 reflects the increase of the federal funds that came into the system. And what you can see in 2022 is we're back to more normal numbers on this issue. If you look at average growth in sales tax year to year, it's about 5.5%, and that's what that, if you take it back to 19 and go through, that's about what that works out to. So we think that was a one-time blip. It gives us some opportunities to do some things that we weren't expecting, but it was a one-time blip. Then, talk about the sales tax. So in August of 2019, the citizens passed Prop 1, which was the Vision 2020 plan. It had about 30 different projects that were listed in there. It had some commitments that we would spend about at least 20% of the new revenue on services for seniors and disabled, 55% on more regular fixed route bus service, and about 25% on various capital improvements to make the bus system work better. And what I want to kind of do was, at a high level, show you where we're at. So we track this on a regular basis. We feel this is a major commitment we've made to the community. And we figure we're about half done right now. We've got about half of the projects have either in progress, fully implemented, or partially implemented going forward. We have quite a bit that have yet to go. We still need to do more expansion of our late night services. We need to look at some of the alternative services that we've been planning to do. But a lot of that is dependent on getting operators. And that's going to be the challenge moving forward. This slide talks about what we have done in the last 2 years. And we've done a lot. I think we made a commitment that even though we were having a hard time hiring people, we were going to do all the things that we could do while we could make things happen. And so we've bought a lot of technology. We've been able to put that into place. We've purchased a fair number of buses to add to the system. Started a rideshare program, started a volunteer driver program in the community. The technology is very passenger focused, so off your cell phone you can now find where every bus in the system is, how many people are on it, how long for the next schedule. Very good trip planning that works really nicely going forward. And of course, the biggest thing we did is we started Sunday service for the first time in 31 years. So we actually operate Sundays. Sunday is limited. We only operate about 5 routes on Sunday. Our intention is to have our Sunday match our Saturday service, so we have got a long way to go, but until we can get more staff, we can't make that new increase. And then the same thing with late night service. We'd committed to operate to 11 o'clock at night. We're really closer to about 8:30 to 9 on most routes. A few routes come in at 10. And again, once we get enough staff that we can do that, then we'll expand out to the later hours that we intend. Not every route will get that, but we'll have some service out there, again, to meet those second and third shifts. But there's a lot that hasn't been done yet. We haven't been able to start our commuter express services. We haven't been able to complete some of the park and ride and construction projects, partially because, again, it's staffing resource issues, and we're doing a lot, and so being able to do a lot of these things all at the same time is challenging. The later services, sidewalk and pathway improvements, this was actually in the ballot initiative as a high priority. Every transit trip starts as a pedestrian trip. You have to be accessing it, and if you don't have a sidewalk to get to the bus stop, that really keeps people from using the system. And so we want to be working with the cities and the counties to fill in some of the gaps in the system, provide access to at least the major stops, and find a way of doing that. So we need to work on what that process is going to look like. Transportation network companies, that's Uber, Lyft, those types of companies. Our market here is kind of limited, so we definitely looking at this as an option to provide particularly some of the late services, but there isn't enough really to work with right now. Although I'd I had a meeting with Uber yesterday, so maybe we'll be able to see something going forward. And then a couple other things we have there. A lot of things partially implemented that were moving things forward, but there's time to go forward. And we always knew there would be some time, but we're delayed. We're probably at 2 years behind where we wanted to be at this point. So this is more the same. Okay. Then our electrification projects, and this has been an interesting process. We have gone all in on electrification because the results have been so positive with the vehicles that we received in 2019. So today we have 13 35-foot coaches. We've had 10 until just recently. Actually, we got 3 of them delivered in the last 2 days. So that gets us to our 13 35-foot coaches. Those vehicles, the 10 of them have been operating since 2020. And we've got about 1.2 million miles on those vehicles, and they are by far the most reliable thing we have in the fleet, and cost us about half what it costs to operate a diesel vehicle on a per mile basis or on even a total cost basis. Currently, we have 2 30-foot coaches in the fleet, and we have 8 more being delivered sometime the next week. And so we will have 23 vehicles that are electric BYDs in service by June, which will mean that we are 40% electrified on our system. And that will all be in the urban area. That's where we've really been able to make this work. Those are all equipped with the wireless charging to operate. We were in the state budget for 9 more vehicles, and so we hope to place that order this month for 9 more BYDs. This will be a newer version of the bus that probably doesn't require the wireless charging because the batteries have gotten that much better in the 2 years we've moved forward. These have a different style of battery that should allow us to operate up to 250 miles any place in town. So that's what the intention is with those. And we've applied for 9 more of those off of a federal grant program. We'll find out next month whether we'll be getting those funded going forward. And if not, we'll probably be buying those locally because those are replacing our gasoline-powered low-floor cutaways, which were a great concept for saving money, but are not holding up and are uncomfortable as heck for both the operators and for the passengers. And so we're going to be replacing those with the electric vehicles because they are actually cheaper to operate than even gasoline. So on this pictures, that red bus up the top is an eBusco vehicle. And we took a couple of folks to the Netherlands to look at that. That is a European design vehicle that without charging should allow us to operate our routes to Chelan. That bus has a 420-mile effective range. It actually can do about 500 miles of service. Our longest route's 520 miles. So with a little bit of tweaking, we can make that bus work in that service. It is dramatically more efficient than what you can find in the U.S. market and cheaper. It's almost $300,000 a copy cheaper than what we can find in the U.S. market. So we're, again, hoping the board will, we have an RFP on the street right now. We hope to award
Any
a contract.
history on super hot days and super cold days in terms of how the batteries handle that?
They manage their batteries for the cold. In the Netherlands, it does get cold, so they manage the batteries for that, and it was a different process than we use here, but I'm quite confident that it works well. And for heat, they are doing a liquid-cooled battery like we have to manage that side of the equation as well. So we're quite comfortable with that, and we're doing a performance spec that, they're gonna have to show us that the vehicle can do this. One of the things we did when we were in the Netherlands is we went to a couple of operators of these vehicles, private company in the Netherlands and a company in Germany, and talked to them about what they were getting out of the vehicle, and it was better than what we were being quoted in terms of the performance. Their batteries may not last as long as the buses we have, which is you have to replace them once over the life of the vehicle, but even figuring that into the equation, you can still keep the cost being less than it is to operate a petroleum-fired vehicle. We've started using battery electric vehicles for driver relief vehicles. We've got 2 Nissan Leafs in service. We are in the process of ordering 3 electric paratransit vans, 4D transit vans. We'll see how they work. They're very short range, about 65 miles, which in Wenatchee and East Wenatchee probably works fine for paratransit, but they won't do the outlying communities. But we're very interested in this little blue vehicle. That's called an E-Jest. We sent a crew down to Hanford, California, where they're operating. That's a Turkish vehicle. It uses a battery system made by BMW, but that is a 9-passenger vehicle, purpose-built, 12 to 14-year life on that vehicle, as opposed to the 4 or 5 years you get out of a standard van configuration. About $190,000 for that vehicle, which is cheaper than what those Ford vans are, and actually could last maybe 12 years. And at least according to the feedback we got from the operator that went with us and our maintenance manager, it ride fantastic. People really like those if that's going to work. Those are not federally compliant, so we can't use federal money to buy them, but at the price they're at, we think that makes sense to look at for local purchases. So there's about 30 transit systems in the country that are working together to get those, and their intention is to open a plant in the U.S. if there's enough market for them. And I think they've got a winner from what we've seen. So by that, we will be able to electrify almost all the fleet. If the plan goes as we're currently at, every service vehicle we have will be electric in 2026, probably 2025 if the delivery schedule's.
Will that be the first in the country? You seem to
Be
be
second.
You seem to be leading in that range. Will be second.
We'd be second electrified. We'd be 5 years ahead of King County Metro,
Okay.
where their plan is. And we didn't intend to be
Right.
second, but it makes sense, and particularly with the failures of the gasoline-powered vehicles, this was a better option for us. So I think we're doing this not only because it's the right thing to do from an environmental noise standpoint, it's actually more cost-effective, and so it seems to be winning. And hopefully we'll continue to have the really good luck that we're having with the equipment. Not all the manufacturers are just at a forum on this, and not all the rest of the manufacturers are having the positive. They're going through many of the problems we did 5 and 6 years ago, they're having with the other manufacturers, but I think our vehicles seems to be holding up really well. This is a comparison of our 35-foot BYDs to our diesel-powered Gillig buses that we currently operate, and just gives you a sense of how much cheaper it is to operate per mile the electric vehicles. The capital cost is higher on the electric vehicle, at least on the ones we currently have. But when you compare the whole thing, it ends up being significantly cheaper. And it's enough cheaper that it actually covers the entire additional cost of the electric vehicle. So we're not paying any more than we would pay to operate a diesel vehicle. And when diesel fuel got to $5.70 a gallon, we were actually paying a lot less than we were operating on the cost. And this graph was something we shared with our board, which compares our long-distance buses, our current Gillig diesel vehicles, the Busco vehicle, we looked in the Netherlands, and then BYD also builds a 40-foot coach that they say can do the range, although we don't actually believe that's true based on the data we've seen on that. We think it's really closer to a 300-mile range rather than a 500-mile range. But again, showing that it still works out as a real positive going forward, and you actually get a lifetime cost savings on this. Now, this is a tougher call because our Gillig buses are not that old. We bought them in 2019, but each of them has almost 300,000 miles on them now. Again, we chunk a lot of miles on these things, and we're actually replacing first set of engines on them. And the engines have gotten dramatically more expensive. Where we used to be able to replace an engine for $25,000, $30,000, now they're $75,000 an engine, and they have a 4-month lead time on them. So it's just very hard to keep those going, the electric fleet, and they're a good vehicle. I mean, I think our operators really like our Gillig vehicles. We like them from a support standpoint. They've been good for us, but the cost of operating it has gotten very expensive, and so it's actually pushing the technology even outside the fact that we're not mandated to do this. I think we are very much living the field. So, and then it's the schedule. So by 2026, every vehicle we have in service should be electric based on the current schedule, assuming the grants come in the way that we've assumed they will. And most of our support fleet should also be electrified by then. And we've been working with the PUD to make that happen and do it in a way that makes sense. There's plenty of power, and we actually have a unique strategy to minimize the impact on the grid using a battery storage to actually charge the vehicles off of batteries, and then we constantly charge the batteries over time to add the load to it, so you're not taking 6 or 8 megawatts of power all at one time to charge buses. You're actually never taking more than a megawatt. So that's also a really creative way of making this work and bringing the costs down. So again, it's just turned out to be a really good deal. That's what I've got for you. Happy to answer any questions.
So Richard, when's your last day? What are you gonna do
August
when you're
18th.
retired?
So August 18th, the board will be interviewing candidates May 11th and 12th is what the current plan is.
You and your wife gonna stay in the area?
Yes, both of my kids live in town.
Okay.
My daughter's a teacher here, and my son works up at the data centers in Quincy, and this is home. And so,
Excellent.
So, yeah, we'll be here and stay
How
involved.
long have you been running Link for?
21 years at Link.
Okay.
And I ran my previous agency for 16 down in
Okay.
Los Angeles before that, and so it'll be 42 years in August that I've been in the industry. Started off as a driver.
Thank you for your commitment and your work on Link, and you guys have heard me say this, and I'll say it again, not to blow up Richard any more than he needs to, but all of the money that we get out of Olympia, especially the 85 million to transportation and the infra, anytime you go to Olympia and you mention Richard DeRock, the whole room lights up. So all of the folks at transportation know that the work that we're doing here is cutting edge, and when we say we need some more money to help with that, they just sort of fumble over us and give us money, and I give Richard DeRock a ton of credit for that, so thank you for that. And
Thanks.
as we continue to see road improvements, you have a big impact on all of that, so thank you.
Would you introduce Christine?
Oh, yes, thank you. I forgot to do that. So I wanted to introduce Christina Barone. She is our planning and development manager. And since I wanted her to get to see all the councils in the area and sort of how government operates here and how you guys all operate, and make her better connected to our communities as we move forward.
Great. Well, Christine, nice to see you again, and come anytime you want, even without Richard. All right, thanks, guys. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I just had and maybe you went through it, there's a lot of information, it's way over my head, and obviously you're an unbelievable leader. I'm just, do you have numbers, I'm just curious on ridership as far as work, school, go play, and do you have stuff?
We don't have anything recent. One of the plans that Christina has is to do an onboard survey of the riders, telling us where they're going. The last one we did was just before the election, about a year before the election. And in that case, we were about 30% education, school access, about 35% access to jobs, medical and so forth was about another 20%. And it was 80% of the boardings were the lowest quartile of income. I mean, we have a very low-income population that uses the system, but, mainly for work. And what we found during COVID when our ridership fell was we were the people getting the people that are cooking and cleaning the rooms and working in the support functions in our community, and it was critical that we continued to operate. And I'm very proud of the fact that we didn't gut our service and shut things down like some other places did. We were able to keep that going, and I think it really helped our community rebound.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
All right, we've got 3 action items and hopefully a relatively quick mayor's report. So we'll start with Aaron Kelly and a lease with the Attorney General's office for 5,000 or so square feet on the top floor. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council, and City Council members. Aaron Kelly, Public Works Operations Manager. I'm here tonight with the Department of Enterprise Services lease for approximately 5,700 square feet of space on the 3rd floor of this building, City Hall. The space will be occupied by the local Attorney General's office. We've been working with the Department of Enterprise Services over the last year. And if you remember, in December, we ended up the council approved a letter of intent by the department for this space. Since then, we've been working out the details of the lease and of the tenant improvements, in which on your screen it shows the 3rd floor, and this was on the kind of the top page is where the mayor's office used to be at, or in the temporary space, and kind of wraps around to where finance used to end up being. The terms of the lease are for 10 years with an option to extend for an additional 5. The cost is $25 a square foot. And for the tenant improvements, it'll be reimbursed by the state after we complete the project. minus 20,000 that we've negotiated to be able to put forth towards the renovations. With your approval, the third floor will be renovated, and the schedule would be to start the design process and then start to go out to bid, and with the construction happening yet this summer, and we intend to be able to have them in the space November 1st. You have any questions for me?
So this has been one you've been working on for pretty close to a year.
Yep.
I think price is good, 25's all in, which means we're doing janitorial, toilet paper, fixing lights. That's gonna be $8 to $9 of that, so we're in the $17, $18 range, or $16, $17 range, which is good in this market, I think. They're gonna put in $500,000 of improvements. We're spending like 20 grand of our money, but the rest is theirs, so it'll be completely updated space. They've asked for, I think, 18 parking stalls, which we currently have available to them, so we don't think parking is going to be an issue for this tenant. If we continue to add tenants, we believe parking is going to become a bit of an issue, so we'll have to keep our eye on that as we go forward. Otherwise, I think this is a wonderful use. We sort of felt like it would be government used. It looks like a government building, and looks like we have another governmental tenant, which is all of the tenants except for the local people. Everyone else in here, I think, is government to some degree.
Correct.
Yeah.
I should have asked this earlier today. You mentioned starting the design process. I see this as Enterprise Services did this layout.
Correct.
Would they be doing, or would we use our City Hall architect for designing?
We actually have a consultant, or at least a proposal by a consultant right now to be able to do this space. We're kind of trying to get in front of it as it's going to be fast-tracked. But yes, this was designed by the Department of Enterprise Services, which wasn't completed for, going out to a bid document. So they just gave us this as more of, this is what they desire to be able to have in the space.
Okay.
Ultimately, we will be the ones controlling that process. We'll be going out to bid. We will be remodeling it for them.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So this will be you and Alyssa on another project. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank God we have Aaron and Alyssa with all the construction that we're doing. All right, any other questions for Mr. Kelly? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move for City Council to approve the lease from the Department of Enterprise Services to lease a portion of the third floor of City Hall and authorize the mayor's signature.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Cuevas, to approve the lease from the Department of Enterprise Services to lease a portion of the third floor of City Hall and authorize the mayor's signature. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
It doesn't look like Ryan. Jake, you doing this one? So those of you who know, Jake is our newest new city engineer, so I don't know how many times you've been here since then, but congratulations on your promotion, and we're gonna hire a consultant to help with the Ped Bridge project.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm here on behalf of Ryan Harmon, asking for authorization to negotiate and execute a consultant agreement with Exeltech. So the South End bike and ped access bridges, this is another project that's part of our infra award, so totally funded by that. It is enhances non-motorized connection between Wenatchee and East Wenatchee by grade separating connection to the loop trail with the BNSF tracks down on the south end of town in the vicinity of Bridge Street. And then it also provides a grade separated crossing of Sunset Highway on the East Wenatchee side. So to connect services over there to South Wenatchee and for all the bikes and peds. So the project will be a traditional design bid build project due to the location, the different stakeholders. This made sense to kind of separate from the other infra-funded Confluence Parkway design build project. And so we put out an RFP in January, and we got 3 proposals, interviewed all 3 teams, had great submittals, but at the end of the day, we ended up selecting Exeltech, who has subconsultant RH2 as the most qualified firm to do the work. East Wenatchee also participated in the evaluation of those proposals and supported our decision to move forward with Exeltech. So this initial contract with Exeltech will include alternative analysis, looking at the bridge types, sizes, and locations, environmental permitting, some geotechnical investigations, some stakeholder coordination. So there's a lot of stakeholders on this between our two cities, different utilities. Chelan PD has large transmission lines on the East Wenatchee side actually, and then water district, the irrigation district for the pipeline bridge, the park, BNSF, and then doing preliminary design. So the idea is they'll get underway and give us a few different options of what the bridges, locations, what they're going to look like, and so we can start getting some cost estimates later this year and move ahead for design. So the idea is we need to have design complete and go to add by next September in order to obligate the requirements of our infra grant. And so with this initial contract to do that work I just kind of described, there's around $750,000 is what we're looking at. And we will come back once we have those preliminary design to ask for a supplement to finish design and go to add. And so that's, at the end of the day, we're expecting around $1 million. The total budget for this project's $10 million. And we currently do have an approved budget as part of our infra, so it's kind of combined with the confluence, but our term sheet has those amounts spelled out as well. And then finally, we'll just have to, we will need WashDOT and Office of Equal Employment concurrence prior to executing this agreement, because there was a DB Equal assigned. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Next September, 2023, 2024.
September of 2024.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Yeah, no, that's how you said it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that is currently the obligation date for the entire confluence project.
The
I
whole
believe.
infra grant. So yeah, basically that September
We
is
will-
when.
We will have some discussions with them once we have a term sheet in hand, but we are awaiting the final term sheet. We expect it soon. And we will then, once we have a term sheet, we will have ongoing discussions with our friends about the obligation date. But currently, the obligation date is September of 2024.
I just want to comment that that's going to beautify the South End Shopping Center. It's going to make it look way better than it is now, you know, more attraction, more visitors. So
Yep.
just wanted to mention that.
Yep. All right, any questions for Jake? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for the city council to authorize the mayor to negotiate the Exeltech Consulting, Inc. for the design services on the South End Bike Ped Access Bridge, project number 2201.02, and further pending WashDOT concurrence, authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Rojanastatian, to authorize the mayor to negotiate with Exeltech Consulting, Inc. for design services on the South End Bike Ped Access Bridges, project number 2201-02, and further pending WashDOT concurrence, authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jake. Good luck on that project. Mr. Hoover, design services contract regarding the Crawford Avenue water main. What's going on?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Jeremy Hoover, Senior Utility Engineer for the city. Here to talk about the water main project in Crawford. The project is going to extend from excuse me, from Okanagan to Miller and include a crossing of the irrigation canal. The water main that's in Crawford right now is a main transmission line between the Okanagan Reservoir and the upper transmission zone, which includes the Skyline Reservoir as well. The water line was installed back in the 50s. It's in poor condition. It has been experiencing failures. We have had to repair it multiple times. And this project is identified as part of our long-range comprehensive plan, which is to replace that and upsize it, as well as put in a parallel distribution line, which will which will serve all of the individual residences, and the transmission line will be separate from the distribution system. Idea being that'll allow us to transfer water from one location to the other without having significant impacts on the distribution side, as well as be able to take portions of the distribution system out without affecting transmission ability from between the two reservoirs. So what I have in front of you now is a request for authorization for design services. The city issued a request for qualifications back in March. We received submittals from I believe it was 3 different consultants. TD&H appeared to be the best qualified to provide the services. The contract that you have in front of you now is not going to be the final version of the contract. We're still in discussions with the engineers to how that's going to work out. Their submittal, based on their scope and fee structure, came out to be $154,000, which is less than what we currently have budgeted for the design services. This project is also being funded through a loan agreement with the State Department of Health State Revolving Fund, which is for design purposes only at this point. We're thinking about construction sometime in 2025. The design services are going to include not just design of the water line, but design of geotechnical investigations as well as archaeological investigations, since that is a requirement of the SRF loan. The geotechnical design will also include design of a bore underneath the irrigation canal. There will be at least 1 directional bore, possibly 2, depending on the condition of the water line that is already present. We may be able to use that as a carrier depending on the final condition of that water line. So with that, I entertain any questions that you may have.
My question was when you were gonna build it, and you told me 2025, so you answered that question. Any other questions for Jeremy? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for the city council to authorize the mayor to negotiate with TD&H Engineering Incorporated for design services for the Crawford Avenue Water Main Replacement, project number 2022, and further authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Poyer, second by Councilmember Harold, to authorize the mayor to negotiate with TD&H Engineering Incorporated for design services for the Crawford Avenue Water Main Replacement, city project number 2022, and further authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jeremy. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Mayor's report. I will be brief, but we do have a couple of things I want to sort of bring up. The first, I think, Danielle and Chief Crown and you guys have been watching what's going on in Olympia with legislators' inability to deal with the Blake decision in terms of how we're going to handle possession. A number of cities and counties are in a rush to go out right now and write new law around that. What you may recall is even last year, we actually passed an ordinance that basically made, I won't say possession, I'll let Danielle deal with it, but we have a code that already has it as a gross misdemeanor. So we're already where the state is trying to get to. And if the state preemption goes away, then our law will take an effect. And so we're actually in a really good spot right now. We don't have to go run out and change anything or adopt new law. If you read about, they're doing it in Seattle and Bellingham and all over the place. So I just want you guys to know that we're in a really good spot with what we've already done. They are going to look at it, Danielle and Chief are going to look at it to see if there's a tweak or two that might need to be done. So you may see that at a council meeting near and dear to you. But in terms of this, the sky is falling. We need to go out and make our own law. We've already got one on the books that will do 95% of what everyone else is trying to get at. So I don't know what you guys are hearing from folks, but I just want you to know that we're out in front of it and in a way better shape than most of the other, I think, cities and counties around this state. Laura, tee off the rest of it for me.
Last week, Last week was Flywheel and the Kenzie's Landing ribbon cutting.
Yep, so Flywheel went fantastic. Obviously, Top's wife Jenny did an incredible job. The folks that were in this valley for those 2 or 3 days were amazing. The companies that presented were also amazing. So congratulations to Jenny and her team. It's just super exciting to see these companies in town. And if you haven't Googled SheFly, you should. And the company out of, with some ties to Leavenworth, I think, that have got some money to help. And so again, super exciting and just great people in our town. Kenzie's Landing dedication was last Friday, so that trailhead is open. I have done lots of dedications in my 12 years. That was as large a crowd as I've seen at any of the, at least trailhead and park dedications that I've done. And I think a lot of that goes to the fact that it was Bart Clennan's daughters named after it, and their family was there, and it was a very special time. Rob Jamron was there on his bike, so he told me he rode to the top. Then I noticed he had an electric bike, so I wasn't quite as impressed as I was before. But
I was just hiding over in the wood.
okay, got it. Yeah. So anyhow, that I thought went really well, and was super excited about that.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Our digester had a little issue.
Yeah. So as Jeremy. I won't give him the mic anymore after the finance committee. He made a pretty funny joke. But, I thought we had 2 digesters. We have 3 digesters at this down, and the oldest one burped during the week. And I won't explain to you what burping is, but they're not supposed to burp. And so there was some spillage outside of the building. It's been cleaned up. We will not be operating at full digester capacity for a couple of months until that gets fixed, and ultimately until we get our new one on order. So that would mean there may be some interesting smells coming from that area for a couple of months. Thank God we have Apollo down there working already. We think they'll be the ones that'll be able to go in and do an emergency fix. Don't exactly know when and how that will happen, but staff was on it right away. So they believe a seal ended up going bad after a number of years. So if you smell a little something down there, that's what's going on.
And lastly, it's Apple Blossom.
Yes, so we did Chief for the day today. Thank you, Chief, for being there. A great start to Apple Blossom. Obviously, we've gone straight from winter to summer, much like we went straight from summer to winter. I guess there was no fall, and I guess there's going to be no spring. So. But a ton of people there. That was the largest crowd for Chief of the Day that I can remember in my 12 years. So it looks like it's a great start. I think the mariachi groups are playing tonight, so I will, after visiting the YWCA Stand Against Racism, I will wander into the beer garden at whatever time that will be, probably sometime soon, hopefully. Council members, anything for the good of the order?
Just a couple things on solid waste. So you're aware that we're ready to adopt our comprehensive plan, and the way they're doing it now is the plan that the county has been working on through solid waste committee becomes a template for the city to use.
Okay.
We've kind of asked Brenda to see if she could find a slot. I think you guys have been in communication with her, so she could come and explain it better to the entire council. We're still getting the grant that we expected from Ecology to continue to assist us with the moderate waste facility.
Which is a fantastic facility, by the way.
If you haven't gone out there, just take a trip out there just to say hi. It's a wonderful facility. So our share of the city, or the 150 matching for the city of Wenatchee, is about 66,000, which is down from what we started with. So the next 2 years, it should be about 66,000. So
good,
going well.
Yeah. Anybody else, anything to add?
I serve on the Association of Washington Cities Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee, and we had a Zoom meeting on Tuesday. It went very well. Their whole purpose is to provide cities and elected officials and city staff resources for, implementing DEI within your community and within your city organizations. It was very interesting. It's going well. There was, I think there was 35 cities last time. This time we only had about half of them there, but we got a lot done, and it was a good meeting. Glenn tells me that there will be a meeting of the engineers on site construction for Wenatchee Rescue Mission. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. We're meeting on site to kick off the site plan and engineering development, which is exciting. So we'll be at that point. Then we'll be reviewing the various phases of that plan to get that going so we can get a package together and go out for a company to do the work on site. So we can get the pallet shelters there.
And then we have another meeting on May 9th, so.
Okay. Anything else, folks?
Yes, prior to coming to this meeting, I was at the Chelan Douglas Homeless Task Force. We were doing the grant application interviews for more than 12 entities, and there was like more than 16 programs. It was really interesting because this is my first year where we can see where we're gonna, the budget, where we're gonna stand it at, and then divide it into all these groups. And it was a lot of work, a lot of fun, and it's a nice support to see where our money is going and where it's being used, and who's gonna use it, and why it's like that. So it was pretty interesting.
It's very interesting, and there's lots of organizations doing great work, but yeah, it's still a very interesting.
It's a lot of work, yes, and I'm thankful for them that what they're doing, and it's not easy out there working with the homeless. You know, working with the shelters, the hotel vouchers, the rentals, the evictions, and all that stuff.
Yep. All right. Next week is a non-meeting week, so enjoy your Apple Blossom week, and we will see each of you again on May 11th at 5:15 p.m. We may have exec session prior to that. We'll let you know in the next week or so. With that, we are adjourned.